Okay, so let's continue our knight character. So first I'm gonna make a layer to keep our mesh. Let's start with the legs. I'm gonna create some controllers for it. So let's make a circle with NURBS primitives. This will be my controller for the feet. I'm gonna duplicate this, make a controller for the COG and the hips, duplicate this again, control vertex. I wanna make the controller for the hips a little bit different. Yeah, that should do. Can also change this a little bit. I'm gonna click over here so I won't select my joints by accident. This way I have an easier time selecting things. So I'll make my feet controller over here. Another controller I need to do the feet is the pole vector controller. I'll duplicate this circle, move it over here. Gonna duplicate this to the other side. So let's get this to work. If you watch the laggy character rig video I did before, you probably already know what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna open the outliner. First we should probably name this. Now we're gonna make a IK using the IK handle tool. With the rotate plane solver, I'm gonna create an IK from here to here. Next up, I'm gonna make with the single chain solver an IK from here to here. Lastly, oops, not insert joint, it's IK handle. Another single chain solver from here to here. So now I have 3 IK handles. This is the ankle IK handle, well, left ankle IK handle, left ball IK handle, left toe IK handle. Now we need to make a few groupings here so the hierarchy will control our foot roll and our heel roll and our toe pivots how we want it to happen. So first thing, with the left ankle IK handle, I'm gonna create a group. I'm gonna call it the left heel lift. I'm gonna put my pivot with D and V selected. I can snap the pivot. I'm gonna snap the pivot to the ball joint. Okay. So now I'm gonna pick both the ball IK handle and the toe IK handle. I'm gonna create a group. This group is going to be my toe lift. And I'm also gonna put the pivots with D and V selected on the ball joint. So now I got the left heel lift and left toe lift. With both of these selected, I'm gonna group it and I'm gonna put my pivot on the toe joint. And this is gonna be my toe pivot, left toe pivot. Okay. So last thing I'm missing from this is to group this thing, the whole thing, the toe pivot group, and call it the ankle pivot group. This is the left ankle pivot. And the pivot for this, D and V selected, will be on the ankle joint. So let's go back to uncheck preserve child transform so I can show you how this works. With this group, I can pivot the whole ankle. With this group, I can pivot from the toe. With this group, I can lift the toe. With this group, I can lift only the heel, so this is our ball roll. foot roll. And that's it. We now got our foot kind of rigged. Now, I want to be able to control those things from the foot controller. So first things first, my foot controller, I want him to control this whole thing. But I want to add some, I'm gonna pull the channel box over here so you guys can see it better. I want to create some extra attributes here to control the foot roll and pivots and stuff like that. So I'm gonna add attribute. Let's create a toe pivot. It's gonna be a float variable type, minimum of -10 and maximum of 10. Okay. So I'm gonna show really quick how this works. We need to come over here to the animation tab. In animate, we're gonna use a set-driven key. I'm gonna pick my driver. The driver in this case is the foot. So the left foot should be loaded in as driver. And the driven is the toe pivot group. This is what we're gonna drive for toe pivot. So select the toe pivot here. And which one are we gonna drive? It's the, let's take a look here. It's the X value, so rotate X. With the value on toe pivot on 0, we're going to set key. So whenever the toe pivot is in 0, it's in 0 right here, it's going to be in that position. Now if it goes to -10, let's set this here to -10. We're going to go here to the left toe pivot. We're going to set the value for -10. So let's say -10 is this. Maybe let's go even more. -10 is this. We're going to set a key. Now I can go back here, and you see, if I go from 0 to -10, I'm actually moving the toe pivot group because of the set-driven key. Now I want to go to +10. I don't think the toe pivot actually needs a +10, because that would be down here. So I don't really think we need it, but since I added it, let's just set a key here, just so I can show you guys. So now I can go from +10 to -10. And have our foot be animated. I showed a different way on the laggy character to do this with more controls, but my LT just added set-driven keys and I love them. They make it easier to animate these kind of things. So I'm teaching this other way here. Let's add some more over here. I'm gonna add now the heel lift. -10, 10. Now let's make an ankle pivot. Okay. Okay, so now, as you can see, we can control our foot from the foot control. Other thing I want to do is to select the ankle IK handle. Actually, let's select this, the left pole vector and the ankle IK handle, and let's make a pole vector constraint. So the pole vector will control the knee rotation. Can see, now we got one of the feet already rigged and working. Now let's set this all back to 0. So, as you can see, I forgot one very important step, that is to actually freeze transformations. We always should be freezing transformations on the controllers before doing anything with them. So right now, let's just select all the controllers and freeze transformations. Also delete history just in case. I got 0 on all of them. Let's put our ankle. Actually, I'm gonna duplicate the left foot again, since now I have the pivot values here. Yeah. I'm gonna move them the other foot's place. Right foot. Okay, now let's just do the same thing. First freeze transformations, always freeze transformations. Let's do the same thing for the other feet. Okay, so now I got set-driven keys for both my feet. They're working fine. I want to get the COG to work with this. First off, the hip controller should be inside the COG controller, so when I move one, the other's moved. My COG should be a parent constraint of my main bone. Let's do a parent constraint. Okay. Let's get our pole vectors more away from our feet so this looks better. Okay, so if I want my hip controller to actually be controlling the hip, I'm gonna need to do some constraining there. Let's get this over here. So I'm gonna get two locators over here. It's really small, but it's there, okay? So each one of those, freeze transform just because. This is my left hip helper. That one's my right hip helper. Okay. I'm gonna create a constraint over here, so we'll follow this. It's gonna be a point constraint. I want the joint to follow the position of this locator. So now if I move my hip helper, the joint's moving with it. That's what I want. Same thing on the right side. Okay. Now I want my left hip helper to be parent constrained to the hip controller, to the parent, and same thing for my right hip helper. So now what happens is, if I rotate this, I can control the rotation of my leg and hip independently from the COG controller. Because if I rotate the COG controller, it's going to rotate the whole upper part, and I might want to just control the hips independently, and that allows me to do that. Okay. Alright, next step is this. Now let's get this over here. Next step, we got the spine. Let's create some new circle controllers. Okay, next up we're gonna make the arms controllers. I'm gonna use FK for the arms because that's where I prefer to work. Actually gonna make a copy of this for the spot as for the clavicle. So I can select it better from behind. Don't want to be looking at my clavicle from the front much. One thing, if you're doing things like this, you'll run into some problems with the orientation, because if you're animating local space, the controller will have the locator pointing this way instead of pointing the way the bone's pointing. One way to go around about that is to get a constraint going on. So you can click first on your bone, then on your clavicle or wherever. Do an orient constraint with maintain offset turned off. So it will orient itself the same as the bone. Then you can just delete the constraint. So now you have the right orientation. So yeah, why not? Let's do that. That was not what I wanted from that, but yeah, okay. Let's get rid of our constraint. Just pick my vertices and rotate this to the back, pivoting from here. Okay. So yeah, if you want to have the same orientation as your bone, you might want to do something like that. Okay. If you don't care, you can just do whatever. Okay, so apparently the human IK actually didn't give me a good joint orientation from the start, so I'm gonna select hierarchy, going to skeleton and orient joint, and to reorient all the joints. So now you can see the orientation is actually more correct. This orientation is just terrible, but yeah, got something that makes more sense over here. Now I can actually do my orient constraint and get right orientation here, despite him messing up with my beautiful curve. Okay. Still got my orientation here. Let's do the same thing over here. Constraint orient. Get rid of the constraint. Now with the vertex selected, I can actually move it around how I want it to. Keep my orientation right. Okay. Same thing for the other side now. Okay, now let's make our hierarchy. It's quite simple. So here's our COG. We want to get our head to be controlled by our neck to be controlled by our chest to be controlled by spine 2, spine 2 to be controlled by spine 1, spine 1 to be controlled by COG. Now if we move the COG, all of the rest comes with it. Notice that if I move the spine 1, just the controller is moving with it because I haven't parented it yet. So you can go ahead and select this controller, select the joint, go in Constraint, Parent. Select one, select the other, Parent. Just using the G to repeat last command and parenting each of them. So now I can actually move them. Now the hands will be controlled by the elbow will be controlled by the shoulder will be controlled by the clavicle. And both clavicles will be controlled by the chest. With shift click I can open the whole hierarchy there, put this inside the chest. So now if I move the chest, all the other controllers there should move too. Now what else have I got to do? Got to parent. Okay, so I forgot to freeze the transformations and I did a whole lot of constraining wrong because I forgot to freeze transformations. So let's always remember to freeze our transformations. Delete history and freeze transformations. Come over here to modify, freeze transformations, and freeze transformations! Always. So this here should all be 0 on all the controllers. Now let's do our constraints. Okay. Well, this is constrained already, but this isn't. So select this, constraint, parent, constraint, parent, constraint, parent, constraint, parent. Just using the G button to repeat my constraint. So I select the controller, then I select the joint and hit G because I already used the constraint as my last used tool, and G repeats the last used tool. Okay. Did I constrain this? Nope, not yet. It's all nice and constrained now. Okay, the one thing we have left on this one to do is the set-driven keys of the fingers. So I'm going to come over here to set-driven key. Let's create some new attributes here. So let's say a thumb roll, I don't know, -10 and 10. Yeah. Mitten 1 roll, because I don't really have fingers, but I have 2 mitten controllers. I don't know, you can create whatever set-driven keys you want for this, really. I'm just gonna do some over here just so you get an idea. But you can do whatever you want with this. Okay, let's load this as the driver. I want to load all of this as my driven. For the X rotation, maybe, I don't know. Haven't checked. Which rotation do I want this on? Oh, Z rotation. Yeah, Z rotation seems like a good one. So this is the thumb roll. Let's key it. Select over here. Put our thumb roll to 10. I'm gonna do a Z rotation over here. Yeah, that seems nice. You can actually have more than one rotation be affected. So if I want, let's say Z and X. First let's go back to 0, just so I can key the Z and Y. Is it Y I want? I don't know. Let's see how the Y looks over here. Looks like the X, okay. So I'm gonna key Z and X here on 0. I'm gonna go back to 10. Oh, this is mitten, I want the thumb. Now let's actually rotate in X a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, you can control more than one attribute at once. See? Now -10 is going to be up like that for some reason. Let's go back. 0. And let's do the mitten rolls. So yeah, now we can actually control our fingers from our hand control. You can add a lot more control to the fingers. You could add something to get the fingers together or farther apart, but yeah, I'll just leave that to you. And now we got our skeleton pretty much ready. Our rig is ready. Now we just need to skin our character to the rig and we'll move with it. I'm not gonna finish skinning today because this tutorial is quite long already, so I'm gonna leave skinning to its own tutorial next week. But I'm gonna do a quick skinning over here. How to get this back there? Help, I don't know how to get this window back there. Okay, never mind. So let's select one thing. I don't want my character to be inside this character reference. That character reference will screw up the rig if I close this and open back again. So what I want to do is to get rid of this output for character that's over here. So I need to select the output, selected it, edit, and delete node. So our rig is not attached to human IK anymore, it's its own skeleton. If you do not do that and you open your character back again, it's gonna be all screwed up. I had this problem with Brable. So yeah. One thing I like to do sometimes also is to create a root joint, root bone. So yeah. Because there's something you can do in Unity with the root bone to get the actual movement from animations. So I'll create a root bone and make my character hips child of it, and make one last controller for be my main controller for the character. Yeah. This will be my main controller. I'll put all the other controllers inside of it. I don't know, maybe. Okay. And I'm gonna parent constraint the main controller to the root bone. So now I can actually move the whole rig with the main controller. Okay. Yeah. So let's select our joints. You can go over here and show joints. Select all the joints but the last ones, because the last ones we're not really controlling anything. They're just there to show. So with those selected, I'm going to select my mesh. Come to skins, move bind. First, let's reset this. Okay. So I want selected joints. So I only want to skin the joints that I have selected. And I like to use closest distance, but geodesic voxel seems to be quite good and it's coming with the new MyLT version. So I'm gonna use that instead. And yeah, let's try those settings. Okay. So yeah, you see, this is one of the things I don't like from the skinning method, because I don't want this part of the chest to move. But I'm gonna be finishing this up next week, so for now, this is what we'll have. Yeah. Okay. That is actually not that bad. Let's see how our legs are doing. Let's check our pivots. Okay. That's nice. Yeah, we'll fix that in the next tutorial, okay? Keep looking over there, looking for my rotation stuff. I love to do this. So yeah, this is our rig. Hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial, and I'll see you guys next week.